A major Chinese military radar station on Taiwan's Penghu Island has been destroyed. Not damaged, not disabled, destroyed. And the weapon that did it, according to reports emerging from the region, represents a capability that should alarm every defense analyst watching the Taiwan Strait right now. Welcome to Legal Lens USA. This is what happens when the world's most sophisticated electronic warfare systems meet a new generation of precision strike technology. And what you are about to hear will completely change how you think about the balance of power in the Pacific. Before we go any further, if you are new here, hit that like button and subscribe right now because we cover stories like this before anyone else does, and we break them down in a way that actually makes sense. The mainstream news cycle will not give this story the depth it deserves. That is why Legal Lens USA exists. The Penghu Islands sit in the Taiwan Strait, a strategic archipelago roughly 30 miles west of mainland Taiwan. For decades, these islands have served as Taiwan's first line of electronic defense, hosting some of the most advanced radar and surveillance systems deployed anywhere in the Pacific theater. The installation that was struck was not some peripheral listening post. This was a primary early warning station, a facility designed specifically to detect incoming aircraft, missiles, and naval movements from the Chinese mainland. Built to survive, reinforced with hardened concrete structures, protected by layered air defense systems, and staffed around the clock by Taiwan's most skilled radar operators. The facility represented years of American technical assistance, billions of dollars in defense investment, and the centerpiece of Taiwan's ability to see threats coming before they arrive. Stretching across several acres of carefully prepared ground, the installation housed multiple radar arrays capable of tracking hundreds of targets simultaneously across vast swaths of ocean and sky. These were not Cold War relics. These were modern phased array systems, upgraded within the last 5 years, representing the cutting edge of detection technology. And on a day that will be studied in military academies for years to come, Chinese forces sent a weapon straight through all of it. Video footage circulating through regional media and military analysis channels shows the moment of impact. Explosions tearing through the radar arrays, secondary detonations suggesting ammunition or fuel storage was hit, thick black smoke rising from what moments before had been one of Taiwan's most critical defensive installations. Within hours of the strike, confusion and urgency spread across military and political circles throughout the Pacific. Chinese state media quickly announced what they described as a successful precision strike against a high-value military target. The language was careful, calibrated, designed to send a message without triggering immediate escalation. But the implications were unmistakable. Beijing had just demonstrated the ability to identify, target, and destroy hardened military infrastructure on Taiwan-controlled territory with apparent impunity. And perhaps most concerning for observers tracking this developing crisis, Taiwan's own air defense systems, the very networks designed to protect installations exactly like this radar station, failed to intercept what was coming. The weapon responsible for this strike is something the world has been watching China develop for years, but had not yet seen employed with this level of precision and effect. It is called a loitering munition, though that technical designation barely captures what this system represents. Most missiles, the kind that have been flying around in conflicts for decades, follow a predictable path. They launch. They fly toward a target along a ballistic or cruise trajectory, and they either hit or they miss, based on the accuracy of their guidance systems and the effectiveness of defensive countermeasures. The Chinese loitering munition does not work that way. Instead of launching and immediately committing to a single attack run, it deploys to the target area and circles. It waits. It observes. It selects the optimal moment and angle of attack. And then, when defensive systems are distracted or repositioning or simply cannot respond in time, it strikes. Think of it this way. A traditional missile is like a bullet. Once fired, its path is set. Defenses can track that path, predict where it will be, and attempt to intercept along that predicted trajectory. A loitering munition is fundamentally different. It is more like a predator circling above prey, waiting for the moment of maximum vulnerability. You can see it coming. You know it is there, but you do not know when or from which direction it will actually attack until the final seconds, and by then, reaction time has collapsed to almost nothing. The specific system China deployed against Penghu Island reportedly uses a combination of satellite guidance, terrain mapping, and terminal phase electro-optical targeting to achieve precision measured in meters rather than the tens of meters typical of earlier generation weapons. Chinese military sources claim these munitions can loiter for up to 6 hours, covering patrol areas of several hundred square kilometers while searching for designated targets or waiting for optimal strike conditions. At any given moment, multiple munitions can be airborne in the same operational area, creating what defense analysts call a persistent threat environment. Unlike a missile salvo that arrives and is either defeated or succeeds within minutes, loitering munitions create sustained pressure. Defenders cannot relax. They cannot stand down air defense systems. They must maintain maximum readiness for hours, which exhausts both equipment and personnel. The technical challenges involved in building an effective loitering munition are substantial. The platform must be small enough and stealthy enough to avoid easy detection, yet carry sufficient fuel for extended flight time. It must integrate sophisticated sensors that can distinguish military targets from civilian infrastructure in complex terrain. It must maintain stable flight characteristics in variable weather conditions. And it must deliver a warhead powerful enough to destroy hardened military installations while remaining lightweight enough to preserve flight duration. What that means in plain English is this. Building a loitering munition that actually works in combat conditions is extraordinarily difficult. The engineering involved requires mastery of propulsion, guidance, sensor fusion, and warhead design. Only a handful of nations have demonstrated this capability in operational deployments. And yet China apparently demonstrated it with devastating effectiveness against one of Taiwan's most important defensive installations. According to Taiwanese military sources and statements circulating through regional defense channels, multiple loitering munitions were detected approaching the Penghu Islands in the hours before the strike. Taiwan's air defense network tracked the inbound threats and attempted to engage them with surface-to-air missiles and close-in weapon systems designed specifically to counter small, slow-moving targets like drones and loitering munitions. Some of the Chinese weapons were reportedly intercepted, but not all of them. And the ones that got through did exactly what they were designed to do. It was not a Chinese general who confirmed the severity of this development. It was a Taiwanese Defense Ministry spokesman. In a briefing to regional media, the spokesman acknowledged that the radar station had sustained significant damage and that operations at the facility had been disrupted. The language was carefully chosen, avoiding explicit confirmation of total destruction while clearly indicating that the installation was no longer functioning at full capacity. Perhaps more revealing was what the spokesman did not say. There was no claim that Taiwan's air defenses had performed flawlessly. There was no assertion that the damage was minimal or easily repaired. There was no dismissal of the Chinese weapon system as ineffective or primitive. Instead, the tone was one of measured concern, the kind of carefully calibrated response that suggests officials understand they are dealing with a genuine capability shift rather than a propaganda claim that can be easily dismissed. Independent analysis from satellite imagery firms that monitor military installations across the Taiwan Strait provided additional confirmation. High-resolution images taken within 24 hours of the reported strike showed visible damage to radar arrays, destroyed support buildings, and debris patterns consistent with precision munitions impacts. The damage assessment, published by multiple open-source intelligence analysts, confirmed that the installation had been hit hard enough to require substantial reconstruction before resuming full operational capability. Let that sink in for a moment. Taiwan invested years and billions of dollars building a radar network specifically designed to provide early warning of Chinese military action. China just demonstrated the ability to identify critical nodes in that network and destroy them with precision weapons that Taiwan's own air defenses struggled to fully counter. And they did it without deploying manned aircraft, without risking pilots, and without triggering the kind of immediate escalation that a conventional airstrike would generate. That is not just a tactical success. That is a strategic demonstration with implications that extend far beyond one damaged radar station. The entire premise of Taiwan's defensive strategy for decades has been that its geographic position, combined with advanced early warning systems and capable air defenses, would provide sufficient time to detect and respond to Chinese military action. The assumption was that any large-scale assault would require visible preparations, massed forces, and conventional attack vectors that sensors could detect and defenses could engage. The Penghu strike directly attacks that assumption. If China can systematically degrade Taiwan's radar network using loitering munitions that are difficult to detect, track, and intercept, then the warning time Taiwan depends on for mobilization and defensive preparation collapses dramatically. What does this mean strategically? This is where the story goes from concerning to genuinely alarming. Taiwan's entire defense concept relies on seeing threats coming with enough advance notice to activate reserves, disperse forces, harden installations, and prepare countermeasures. If radar stations can be destroyed or degraded in the opening hours of a conflict before Taiwan even fully understands what is happening, then the decision-making timeline compresses in ways that fundamentally favor the attacker over the defender. Implementing new defense systems capable of countering loitering munition swarms could take years and require technological solutions that do not yet exist in operational form. You cannot solve this problem overnight. You cannot rush the engineering. And in the meantime, every radar installation, every command center, every airbase across Taiwan now exists under a new kind of threat that current defenses are not optimized to handle. The implications for the United States are also direct and immediate. American military planning for any Taiwan contingency assumes that U.S. forces would have sufficient warning time to position assets, activate defense agreements, and establish operational presence in the region before Chinese forces achieve decisive objectives. If China can degrade Taiwan's sensor network rapidly using weapons that are difficult to counter, then American decision-makers face compressed timelines and degraded intelligence about what is actually happening on the ground. That changes force planning. That changes deployment schedules. That changes the calculus of what it means to extend security guarantees to Taiwan when the early warning infrastructure those guarantees depend on can be systematically eliminated in the opening phase of conflict. American bases throughout the Pacific, from Okinawa to Guam to the Philippines, are now operating under the knowledge that China has demonstrated a weapon system that can conduct precision strikes against hardened military installations with relatively low risk of interception. That reality forces reassessment of base hardening requirements, air defense coverage, and dispersal strategies across the entire theater. Each of these developments individually would be significant military news. Together, they paint a picture of a conflict dynamic that has shifted in ways that most analysts in the West have not fully appreciated. This is what loitering munitions have done in their Taiwan Strait combat debut. And every military planner, every defense ministry, every alliance structure dependent on early warning and sensor networks is now absorbing what that means. According to Taiwanese authorities, damage control and reconstruction efforts at the Penghu radar station began within hours of the strike. Official statements emphasized that the facility remained operational, that redundant systems were in place, and that overall surveillance coverage of the Taiwan Strait had not been significantly degraded. United States Indo-Pacific Command officials, speaking on background to regional media, expressed confidence that Taiwan's defensive capabilities remained robust, and that isolated incidents should not be interpreted as indicating fundamental vulnerabilities in Taiwan's military posture. Pentagon officials moved quickly to reassure both domestic and international audiences that American commitment to Taiwan's defense remained unchanged and that U.S. surveillance assets were providing continuous monitoring of Chinese military activities in the region. The conflicting narratives, China claiming a significant successful strike and Taiwan downplaying the strategic impact, created an atmosphere of uncertainty that has become characteristic of the gray zone warfare now defining the Taiwan Strait. For many observers, the mere fact that China conducted a precision strike against Taiwan-controlled territory without triggering immediate military escalation marked a dangerous normalization of what previously would have been considered acts of war. Whether further details will confirm the full extent of damage or validate Taiwan's assurances of minimal impact remains to be seen, but the demonstration of capability has already captured regional attention and underscored the volatile dynamics of modern military technology competition. So, where does this leave us? It leaves us at a moment where one strike, one weapon system, has fundamentally shifted the conversation about early warning networks, defensive depth, and the balance of military power in the Taiwan Strait. A radar station that was supposed to provide Taiwan with eyes across hundreds of miles of ocean and sky has been destroyed or severely degraded. Air defense systems that were supposed to protect critical infrastructure struggled to intercept a weapon system that China can deploy in large numbers without risking manned aircraft. And the strategic assumption that Taiwan would have sufficient warning time to mobilize defenses before facing decisive threats has been directly challenged by a demonstration that critical sensors can be eliminated rapidly in the opening phase of conflict. This is a story that is still developing, and Legal Lens USA will keep you updated as new information emerges. If this video helped you understand what is really happening in the Pacific Theater, please share it with someone who needs to see it and drop a comment below. Do you think Taiwan and the United States have a credible answer to Chinese loitering munition capabilities right now? Let us know what you think, because this conversation matters and your perspective matters. This is what China has demonstrated with precision strikes on Taiwan's critical infrastructure. Every defense planner, every alliance structure, every nation dependent on early warning and sensor superiority is now absorbing what that means. The answers are not clear yet, the responses are not defined yet, but the question has been asked loudly in a single strike on a fortified radar station on Penghu Island.